This is a wonderful, wonderful turnout. Dubuque, thank you very much for coming out this morning. And let me thank Frances King for her remarks, Supervisor Chris Schwartz for his remarks, Louis Meyer for his remarks, and let me not only thank Tiffany for her remarks, but the incredible courage of those workers to stand up for their own dignity, and for the second time in Iowa, all of Iowa, have a hotel that is organized. Congratulations, IBW. There's a lot, I know there's a lot of concerns on your minds, and we want to get to them. But before we do that, I wanted to say a few words regarding the developing situation in Iraq and Iran. As I said yesterday, I am deeply concerned that President Trump's actions represent a dangerous escalation that brings us closer to yet another disastrous war in the Middle East, which is exactly what we do not need. Unfortunately, similar to my concerns that I raised way back in 2002 regarding the war in Iraq, a new war with Iran could cost thousands of lives, trillions more dollars, and lead to even more deaths, more conflict, and more displacement throughout a region that is already in volatile situation. So let me say a few words about what I see as the next steps that we must take to stop Trump's reckless actions and his impulsiveness. When I return to Washington next week, and along with the U.S. Senate, I believe the first course of action is for the Congress to take immediate steps to restrain President Trump from plunging our nation into yet another endless war. This country needs a whole lot of things, but one thing that we do not need is another war. We've got enough of those. With my colleague, Congressman Ro Khanna, and others, we will advance legislation to assert Congress's constitutional authority and responsibility to prohibit any funding for offensive military force in or against Iran without congressional authorization. I am also proud to support Senator Tim Kaine's War Powers resolution to force a vote to end unauthorized hostilities against Iran. As I think all of you know and all Americans know, our founding fathers gave the responsibility over war not to the president, but to Congress. That is very clear in the Constitution. And in my view, Congress must act in the face of a president who has shown time and time again that he cannot be relied upon to tell us the truth or to make well-thought-out decisions. Furthermore, fortunately, as we have seen with the resolution I authored with conservative Republicans to end our involvement in the Saudi-led war in Yemen, I believe, thank you. I believe that there must be and that there will be bipartisan support for Congress to take this step. For too many years, and here is the simple truth that nobody in this room or I should be proud of. But for too many years, Congress, under Republican administrations and under Democratic administrations, has abdicated its constitutional responsibility. It is time for Congress to take that responsibility back. If Congress wants to vote to go to war, and I will vote against that, but if Congress wants to go to war, let Congress have the guts to vote for war. Do not let this president take unilateral action. Let me tell you very briefly what our campaign is about and what our administration will be about. And what our campaign is about is asking questions and raising issues that most other campaigns do not go near. We are asking all of us to think big, not small, to think outside of the box, not to just listen to what Congress says and the media says and tell us that our options are A to B. Our job is to understand why we are where we are today and where we want to go as a people. So to begin with, I think today about the thousands and thousands and thousands of young men and women who have put their lives on the line to defend American democracy. And I worry very much about the status and the state of American democracy today, which is under assault from Trump and his friends. So to my mind, one of the most important things that we have got to do is reaffirm our belief in democracy, and that means we believe in one person, one vote, not billionaires buying elections. So as president, I will lead the effort for a constitutional amendment to end this disastrous Citizens United Supreme Court decision. We will end voter suppression in America. We will end extreme gerrymandering in America. And we will move to public funding of elections. Republican governors all across this country are trying to make it harder for people to vote. I want to make it easier for people to vote. Right now, the United States has one of the lowest voter turnouts of any major country on earth. Our goal must be to have the highest voter turnout of any major country. And when we look at what's going on in America today, it's not just a corrupt political system controlled to a large degree by billionaires, but it is also an economy which is rigged in favor of the very wealthy and large corporations. So today and again, we don't talk about it too much, but this campaign does talk about it, and our administration will deal with it. And that is, we have more income and wealth inequality in America today than at any time since the 1920s. To me, it is unacceptable, it is immoral, and it is bad economics when 3 people, 1, 2, 3, own more wealth than the bottom half of America, 160 million people. It is unacceptable to me that tonight there will be over 500,000 Americans who are homeless, including 30,000 veterans, at the same time as the top 1% owns more wealth than the bottom 92%. Now, I just talked to some workers here in Dubuque, trying to get by on 10, 11, 12 bucks an hour. People can't make it on 11 or 12 bucks an hour. And yet in America today, while half of our people are living paycheck to paycheck, and I know a little about that. I grew up in a family that lived paycheck to paycheck. While half of our people are struggling, 49% of all new income goes to the top 1%. So brothers and sisters, our task is not complicated. We must create an economy that works for all of us, not just the 1%. Now, Trump and his friends tell us that unemployment is low. Well, it is low. But on the other hand, it is hard to find a job that pays people a living wage. We are tired of jobs that pay 9, 10, 11 bucks an hour without health care. We want jobs that families can live on, not go underwater. So let me very briefly tell you what we're going to do about the economy. Not complicated. You all know what has to happen. If you work 40 hours a week in Iowa, Vermont, or in America, you should not be living in poverty. We're going to raise the minimum wage to at least 15 bucks an hour. We are going to have equal pay for women for equal work. As you just heard from Tiffany a moment ago, who helped form a union, we are going to make it easier for workers to join unions all across this country. If 50% of workers in a bargaining union sign a card, they have a union. End of discussion. And our legislation, called the Workplace Democracy Act, ends Section 14B of the Taft-Hartley Law, ending all so-called right-to-work legislation in this country. We are tired of workers having the, quote, right to work for starvation wages. We need decent wages in this country. And at a time when our infrastructure here in Iowa and in Vermont, and I'm talking about roads, I'm talking about bridges, I am talking about water systems. Whoa, what a radical idea. Maybe people should have clean drinking water when they turn on the faucet. We can create millions of good-paying union jobs investing in rebuilding our infrastructure. And when we talk about a progressive agenda, we are going to talk about and act on an issue that we have for too many years ignored, the needs of children, of young people. Let's be clear, we are the wealthiest country in the history of the world, and yet we treat our children shamefully. That's just the fact. We have the highest rate of childhood poverty of almost any major country on earth. If you are a working class family here in Iowa or in Vermont, or virtually any place in America, you are finding it almost impossible to find decent, quality, affordable childcare. We have teachers in America who are working 2 or 3 jobs because the salaries they're getting are totally inadequate. We have hundreds of thousands of bright young kids who cannot afford to get a higher education. So we got to rethink our attitude toward young people and education in general. And that means that among many other things, I want every kid in Iowa, Vermont, and throughout America to understand that if they take their schoolwork seriously, they will be able to get a higher education, at least college or trade school, regardless of the income of their family, because we're going to make public colleges and universities tuition free. And if we could afford to bail out 11 years ago the crooks on Wall Street, if we could afford to give $1 trillion in tax breaks to the 1% and large corporations, we can cancel all student debt in America. I'll tell you something else, an issue you've been hearing a little bit about, and let me kind of tell you the truth about that issue, and that is healthcare. I want to make a few points. I want everybody here to know that the United States today is the only major country on earth not to guarantee health care to all people as a human right. This great country, our great country, richest on earth, we are the only country not to guarantee health care to all people. And together, you and I are going to end that international embarrassment. And meanwhile, here's another fact I want you to know. We pay today almost twice as much per person for health care as do the people of any other country. You got that? So in other words, if you are not spending a lot of money for something and the quality is not good, you say, well, it's cheap, I didn't pay a lot of money for it. We are spending almost twice as much per capita on healthcare as the Canadians or people throughout Europe. And yet our healthcare outcomes, infant mortality, how long we live, our longevity, is worse than many of those countries. So today, let me make it very clear. In my view, the function of a rational healthcare system is not to make the drug companies and the insurance companies rich. It is to provide quality care to all people through a Medicare for all single-payer program. Last year, while 87 million of us in this country were uninsured or underinsured, while 30,000 of us died because we couldn't get to a doctor on time because we didn't have any health insurance, while 500,000 people went bankrupt because of medically related bills, last year, the healthcare industry made $100 billion in profit. So today, we say to the drug companies, who charge us by far the highest prices in the world, and today we say to the insurance companies who are making huge profits, we are, whether you like it or not, going to pass a Medicare for all single-payer program. the healthcare industry, because they made $100 billion last year, they have unlimited amounts of money. Unlimited. So they're running ads in Iowa, they'll run ads all over the country telling you how terrible Medicare for all is. So let me tell you the truth. Let me tell you what Medicare for all does. Number one, Medicare for all, our legislation, ends all premiums for workers and their employers. Premiums are gone. We end all co-payments. Co-payments are gone. And I want you to think, again, what I'm trying to talk about today is outside of the box. Think about a totally insane concept developed by somebody some time ago. It is called a deductible. Now, I want you to think about a deductible. If you say you have insurance, the assumption is, okay, I'm paying for insurance, maybe it's too much, but I got insurance. And here's my insurance card, I'm going to the doctor whenever I want. Well, not quite. Because you may have a $5,000 deductible, a $10,000 deductible, a $12,000 deductible. So what happens if you're a working class person, like most people, many people in this country, you don't have a whole lot of money in your pocket. How do you pay that $5,000 out of your own pocket if you get sick or a family member gets sick? Well, you know what? You don't. You don't go to the doctor when you should. You get sicker than you should have. Medicare for all eliminates all deductibles in this country. Medicare for all eliminates all out-of-pocket expenses for our people. And Medicare for all legislation will not allow anybody in America to pay more than $200 a year for their prescription drugs, because we're going to take on the greed of the pharmaceutical industry. Now, there is a good debate, a reasonable debate about how you pay for it, how you pay for Medicare for all. But before we talk about how you pay for Medicare for all, my legislation, let's talk about how we pay for what we got right now. And how we pay for it is that the worker in the middle of the American economy today, that median family, earns about $60,000 a year. That family today is paying $12,000 a year for health care, 20% of their income. That is outrageous. It is, of course, a tax. Okay? 20% of your income for the average worker is how we pay for it today. There are people in this room who are paying $1,000, $1,500 a month for premiums. There are people in this room who have $5,000, $10,000 deductibles, which means they got to take that money out of their own pockets. There are people in this room who are paying prescription drug costs of thousands of dollars a year. All right? So how do we pay for Medicare for all in a way that is fair? We pay for it in a number of progressive ways. But one way that we pay for it is we say to the working people of this country, you will pay a federal income tax of 4% on your income, exempting the first $29,000. So if you're making $29,000 or less, that's free. If you're making $60,000, if you're that family right in the middle of the economy, you're paying 4% of $31,000, which is a little bit more than $1,200 a year for comprehensive health care. So when you hear people attack me as to how we're going to pay for it, you ask them how they're going to pay for their system. And they're going to maintain the status quo, which working families in this country cannot afford. Furthermore, Medicare, the reason we go this route is we're not inventing a new program. Medicare has been around since the mid-1960s. It is a popular program. Problem is, you got to be 65 to get into it. So what we do is two things with regard to Medicare. First of all, while Medicare is a good and strong program, it is not perfect by any means. We expand Medicare benefits to include dental care, hearing aids, eyeglasses, and home health care. There are people in this room who have Medicare supplements. That's gone. You don't have to worry about it because we will cover all of those benefits covered by Medicare Advantage. And what we do is we phase in the program over a 4-year period. Year number 1, we expand benefits and then we lower the eligibility age from 65 to 55. Year 2 down to 45, year 3 down to 35, year 4 everybody is in. Ain't complicated. And when we do that, we will provide high quality, affordable health care to every man, woman, and child. That's what I believe must happen. There's another issue that I want to spend a minute on because it is such a existentially important issue. And I wish I didn't have to tell you this. You know, I wish it would be easy for me to not tell you the truth, but that is not my style. And what I want to simply tell you is that anybody who tells you that climate change is not real is not only lying to you, okay, but even worse, is endangering the well-being of our children, our grandchildren, and future generations. Right? You know, and I honestly don't understand how people can hold that view. You know, I understand greed. People want to make billions and billions of dollars. Fine. All right, I get that. But everybody out there, I mean, all these guys in the fossil fuel industry and elsewhere, they have children, they have grandchildren. And I don't know how you can reject what the scientists are telling us and endanger these kids. And what the scientists are telling us today is that they have greatly underestimated the degree and speed and severity of what climate change is doing to our country and to the world. In other words, they have underestimated the danger. So right now, what they are telling us is that the polar ice caps are melting at a far faster rate than they had anticipated. The oceans are warming at a far faster rate than they had believed possible. The result means that the sea level is rising, which means if we do not get our act together, don't mean to frighten you, is that in our country, major cities like Miami, like New Orleans, Charleston, South Carolina, maybe New York City, will be partially or completely underwater by the end of the century. Countries like Bangladesh, Vietnam, parts of China will be underwater. We're talking about more drought, which will impact farmers here in Iowa, because it will mean shorter, less productive growing season, and the quality of the crop being produced will deteriorate, less nutritional value. It will mean more extreme weather disturbances. Last month, you saw pictures of Venice, Italy being underwater. You saw pictures of Houston, Texas being underwater. Torrential rainfalls. Expect to see more of that. When the ocean warms, it is killing off millions of fish. People all over the world get their protein from fish. There will be more hunger. The United Nations tells us that when we have more drought and we have more flooding, there will be hundreds of millions of people who will be what we call climate refugees. In other words, they will no longer be able to live in their communities because they can't find clean water, and they can't find land to grow their crops. They will migrate, which causes massive international conflict when millions of people move into another country. So I have been criticized because I have introduced the most sweeping climate change proposal ever introduced by a candidate for federal office. And people say, Bernie, your proposal is too expensive. Well, I want you all to think, what is the alternative when you are fighting for the future of this planet? How much is too much? Our proposal is based on the principles of the Green New Deal, and I don't apologize for that. And that means we create up to 20 million good-paying union jobs by transforming our energy system away from fossil fuel to energy efficiency and sustainable energy. We are going to retrofit older buildings throughout this country, putting people to work. And we're going to build the products needed to retrofit buildings right here in the United States: insulation, windows, roofing, creating millions of jobs. Iowa is one of the leaders in wind energy. You should be proud of that. We have got to expand wind and solar and biofuels and geothermal all over this country. We have to create a new transportation system not based on fossil fuel. And here is, and I say these things, I wish I did not have to say it, because people sitting there say, this is scary stuff. It is, but I don't know how you deal with it if we don't face the truth. If we continue to have politicians like Trump who deny the reality, who reject science, it is going to be a horror show not only for our country, but for the world. And here's what makes the problem even more complicated. It is not just an American issue. It is a global issue. So my pledge to you is that as President of the United States, number one, I will listen to the scientists. Number two, I will reach out to the people of China and Russia and India and Pakistan, Brazil, people all over the world, and make it clear that instead of spending $1.8 trillion a year on weapons of destruction designed to kill each other, we should pool our resources and fight our common enemy, which is climate change. Bottom line here is that we must tell the fossil fuel industry that their short-term profits are not more important than the future of this planet. And I am confident that with all of the resources that we have, with all the engineers we have, with all the scientists and all the great workers that we have, we can in fact lead the world in transforming our energy system and help countries all over the world do the same. So. I'll touch very briefly on a few other issues, open it up to some questions and some comments. We have got to end a broken and racist criminal justice system. I am embarrassed that the United States has more people in jail than any other country on earth, okay? And what we have got to do is invest in our young people, in jobs and education, so that these kids know that they can live a good life, make a good living. We got to invest in those kids rather than in more jails and And among many other things, I won't go through the whole long list of things, is we must, and I know maybe not everybody in the room agrees with me, but I believe it, we have got to end the war on drugs. And that means legalizing marijuana in every state in this country. And it means expunging the records of those arrested for marijuana. But it is not only a broken criminal justice system that we've got to reform, it is a very broken immigration system as well. And I will tell you that on day one, we will end the demonization of the undocumented in this country that Trump is carrying on right now. On day one, through executive order, we will undo all of the racist immigration executive orders promulgated by Trump. We will reestablish legal status for the 1.8 million young people and their parents eligible for the DACA program. We will develop a humane border policy that does not allow agents to snatch babies from the arms of their mothers. And we will pass comprehensive immigration reform in a bipartisan manner that moves the undocumented toward citizenship. All of us, whether we are conservative or progressive, Democrat, Republican, Independent, react with horror and disgust when we turn on the TV and we see another mass shooting. And people just throw their arms up and say, I can't believe that this is happening in America. And it's not just the number of people who are killed by guns or the mass shootings, it is the fear that kids have all over this country. I was in New Hampshire a few weeks ago, and a woman stands up and she says, Bernie, what am I supposed to tell my 11-year-old daughter who wants me to buy her a bulletproof backpack for Christmas? That's the kind of fear that children experience. My grandchildren undergo drills. Your kids and grandchildren undergo drills in order to prepare for some disgusting, unimaginable horror taking place in the school. So this is an issue that has got to be dealt with. And what I will tell you is that our gun policy will be determined by the American people, not the NRA. And that is, we will have universal background checks. We will end the gun show loophole. We will end the straw man provision, which allows people to legally buy guns and then sell those guns to criminal elements. And increasingly, all over this country, people are coming around to a view that I've had for decades, that we will end the sale and distribution of assault weapons in this country. As a United States Senator, I hear a lot of speeches on the floor of the Senate. Not the most fun thing in the world, I have to tell you, but I do hear. And very often, I hear from my Republican colleagues who say, you know, we are conservative, we believe in small government, you've heard this mantra, we believe in getting the government off the backs of the American people, et cetera, et cetera. Well, I say to those conservatives, If you believe in getting the government off the backs of the people, understand that it is women who must control their own bodies, not the government. So my promise to you is that I will never nominate anyone to the Supreme Court or to the federal courts who is not 100% pro Roe v. Wade. Let me conclude by saying this. As a senator, I deal with the power of the corporate elite every day. I deal with Wall Street, where you got 6 banks that control assets of over $10 trillion. Got that? 6 banks, $10 trillion. I deal with the drug companies who are charging you, in some cases, 10 times more for the medicine you need than they are charging people in other countries. I deal with the greed of the insurance industry. I deal with the military-industrial complex and all the cost overruns and all the corruption that goes on in that industry. I deal with the prison industrial complex. So I know a little bit about the power of the corporate elite and about the power of the 1%, and they are very powerful. I wish I could tell you otherwise. They have endless amounts of money. They own the media. They can put as much money as they want on TV ads. They buy think tanks. They have extraordinary power. But at the end of the day, what this campaign is about is the belief that if the 99% stand together, if we do not allow Trump and his friends to divide us up based on the color of our skin, or where we were born, or our religion, or our sexual orientation, if we stand together around an agenda that works for all of us, notwithstanding the power of the 1%, we can take them on, we can defeat Trump, we can transform this country, and that is what this campaign is about. Thank you.